like washes hair feels like she should film, basically. My girlfriend said to me today, she's like, I'm saving so much money on shampoo. It's like, I'm not saving money on shampoo. I think I'm washing my hair the same amount, but my hair is definitely not getting any heat styling. I'm sure you could tell. Or I'm saving on dry shampoo. I'm much less like interested in a dry shampoo situation. So this is washed this morning, but then air dried. I actually air dried it whilst doing a marathoner Facebook Live. I am wearing a tank top in case it looks like I'm just wearing a cardigan and nothing else. Well, that's a weird start. Hello, welcome to the marathon. Hi, welcome to this video. This is an exciting one for me because coming up on the 15th, it will be 4 years since I left my full-time radio job doing the morning show on Sun FM. And I wanted to start out by saying hi, hello, to anyone who is now a marathoner or anyone who watches my videos, who first, found me on the morning show. I appreciate that you've stuck with me this long. I know there's lots of people who are, that you nicely just carried on over, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Also, to the people who say that they miss me on the morning show, I really appreciate you saying that as well. I miss it. It was such a fun job, so fulfilling, so rewarding and challenging and difficult and easy and fun, and it was great. So I thought to commemorate the fact that somehow it's already been 4 years, I would do a radio Q&A. So I asked you to ask me any of your like behind the scenes radio questions, anything you've ever wanted to know about radio. And let me tell you, some of you asked some pretty good ones. So I'm gonna go from Facebook and then to Instagram and do a little Q&A today. What's your most memorable radio moment? Oh, I should also say I haven't like read these ahead of time and I haven't thought of anything. Like, I haven't planned my answers, obviously. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is early on doing the morning show, there was an apartment fire in our town in which a lot of people lost their homes and a lot of those people didn't have renter's insurance. And we did a fundraiser live, like on the fly from the front lawn of our studio, and we raised money. And that felt amazing. That to me was like such a great example and the epitome of how important radio is to a community. And it like blew my mind then, and then continued to over and over and over again, to see people supporting each other and like supporting strangers. That was pretty incredible. Yeah, that's the first one that comes to mind, but there are so many. Proudest moment. Oh my gosh, so many. I would say anytime someone told me that our morning show helped them, and whether it was they were going through a tough time and they liked to listen to the show and it like gave them an escape from reality, or we taught them something, like they learned something on the show, or we just kept them company on their way to work, that made me super proud. It made me really feel like, yes, we may be talking a lot about like Britney Spears and Super Bowl bets and like seemingly ridiculous things, but we always knew that it was purposeful, and to see people recognize that felt great. What made you want to work from home full time? Well, it's actually really interesting. The reason why this like dawned on me that my anniversary was coming up was one of those Facebook memories, and in my Facebook memory a couple days ago was the video that I posted about me quitting my job. And it was almost hard for me to watch because that woman 4 years ago was in so much concealed pain, and I didn't even talk about all of the reasons in that video. I mean, the easy answer is I'd been wanting to leave for a long time. Even when I was on mat leave, I didn't know if I would go back. And I go into like a lot of detail in my book, Finding Your Cape, if you're interested. I do give some like behind the scenes of that aspect of my life, but really, I felt like I'd peaked and didn't want to leave town because of Thomas's autism therapy. We felt really supported that way. But I needed to be home is the like big answer. It was time for me to be home for Thomas and for Jeremy. His mental health really started to get scary and, I mean, scary, like, you know, inevitably fatal, but 2015, at the beginning of 2015 is when it really started to show that it was something that we needed to really focus on. So I spent a lot of 2015 trying to figure out how I could support him and how I could support our family and how I could be home but still make money and then take a lot of his weight off. So when I left in 2016, a lot of it was, I need to be home because, you know, I would get calls from Jeremy saying like, you need to come home now, I'm gonna hurt myself. Or, you know, he would show up at the station, or it was just, I needed to be home. And then with the secondary goal of me making enough money so that he could quit his job too and focus on his health. And he needed a change too. He needed to leave radio as well. It had just become toxic for the both of us. So that was another reason. But yeah, it was wild to go back and watch that video. I was actually gonna film this video and include a lot of old clips. But as I did, it's hard to watch. There's so many clips where I'm like seemingly fine, but I can see it in my eyes, or I'm taken back to that time where it was so difficult. And again, like I go into this in the book a lot, but like crying while I read the news, or like having a panic attack and having to leave the studio. And like Farm was just always so supportive and scared for me, but like understanding. And yeah, so it was time. It was time professionally. I needed a change, and personally I needed to be home for my family. What do I miss about it? I miss like laughing with Farm for 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. I miss that feeling of helping people and helping people in real time. I miss the camaraderie. I miss going to an office every day. Like, I love working from home, but there's definitely a part of me that misses that every day being around other people, other adults. I miss that for sure. What advice would you give to someone trying to find a job in the field? Okay, my advice would be leave your safety net. So my education was at BCIT in Vancouver, and I co-opted out early, still graduated, but my last semester I was actually already working full-time. I left Vancouver, and instead of coming back to the Okanagan, which would have been my preference, the first job that came up was in Prince George, and I got it and I took it. And I'm so grateful that I was able to work there for 18 months and like work out the kinks in my voice and my presentation. Just being like, I started out as a reporter, then I moved on to be a news anchor, and then I started, you know, moved on to the morning show a few years later. But I would say like leave so that you can make mistakes, you can sound bad, you can be trained, find a mentor, like listen to the people who have been in the industry longer than you. And in my 15-year career, I definitely saw a lot of people come and a lot of people go, and there were some who were taking it seriously and were open to learning, and then there were some who like came out of school and thought they knew everything. Most of those people never like amounted to anything. You need to be willing to move. In radio, it's a very fluid industry. Like I have friends that, you know, went to the prairies, went way up north, and have moved quite a bit. That is, if you want to see the country, it's a great thing, but it can be difficult, especially if you have a partner or, you know, you're trying to like maintain friendships and stuff. Like that was one thing I really noticed was like, it's great to have friends in the building, but inevitably they're going to leave and then it's hard to maintain that friendship. So be willing to move, be willing to have a mentor and listen to them, and also really diversify your skill set. So don't think that you can like just do one thing. Be willing to do socials, be willing to pick up a camera, be willing to MC stuff. Like you need, even if you're super uncomfortable speaking in public and that's why you thought you could be in a studio, you have to be able to MC and be seen in public and be part of the community. Like to me, that was just always part of the job. People said to me like, oh, do you get paid to MC? I was like, 99% of the time, no. I'd be grateful if I even got a thank you, because because a lot of the time we didn't even get that. But like, I think a lot of people don't realize I just always considered that to be part of the job, part of my salary, part of being part of the community, and I took that really seriously. Do you still keep in contact with your your farmer? Do you still keep in contact with your former coworkers? Yes, I do. Some of them for sure, like farm for sure. I have a few friends from like the different stations that I've worked at, but like I said, it's hard. Time passes, you change a lot. Like I think of who I was when I first started my career 15 years ago, definitely a different human being now. I'm even different than I was 4 years ago, but it kind of ebbs and flows, you know, social media is good for that. But yeah, I am definitely still in contact with a few. I figure you taped your show at your previous station. How long did it take you to tape your show? So I was on Sun FM for 1,000,006 years, and then I left, and then I came back and worked at a country station here in town. And when I first started, I was live on the weekends. I used to be there for 6 hours. That's what I initially was hired to do. And then Jeremy passed away and I left, and I could no longer go back to doing weekends because I have Thomas to take care of. So I very nicely was able to cover someone's mat leave and do middays. And then they created an evening show for me. And those like middays and evenings were recorded. And I recorded them for this station and another station. I would be there like less than an hour to do a 5-hour show. Because one thing when you're in radio, you're just constantly thinking of breaks. Like I would honestly just always have a note in my phone and constantly be making notes of like, that's a break, I want to talk about that. Or I'd see something and like save a link. So when I went to record or voice track as it's called, it never took me very long. Plus the station wasn't like one where I could talk a lot. Like, you know, morning show, we could do interviews, our breaks were never timed. Whereas when you're doing a recorded show, it's much more specific. So it didn't take me long at all. Was your media company fully up and running before you left the radio station, and for how long? Yes. So I didn't want to just quit and then try and figure out what to do. I felt like my career didn't have a ton of transferable skills. So I created my business, which is Redhead Mare Media. And I incorporated that October of 2015. And then I quit my job April of 2016. So that would be 7 months it had been running. And yeah, so I was like working on it when I wasn't at the station. I was doing both in order to build it up so that I could leave. What made you do weekends on the country station? Why did you go back? Well, they very persuasively headhunted me. I never thought I would go back on the radio. Like I always was like, no, I'm done. Like when I left Sun FM, I got the radio tattoo. I was like, this was a good time in my life, but I'm ready to go to the next chapter. But for a few reasons. One, I had really missed being in an office. So I had hoped that I would have like colleagues and have something social. It didn't end up being that way because I was either there on the weekend by myself or I would voice track and I would maybe see 1 or 2 other people. Also, I just treated it like another client of my business. Like I needed business and it was good financially. But it was very hard after Jeremy died to balance because everything else, my business wise, I can do in this room. This is my office I'm sitting in right now, but that I obviously couldn't. So it was like, either I'd have to find someone to watch Thomas, or sometimes I would take him, but then I'd always be listening and hoping that he wasn't like leaving the building, and it was really stressful. So it just became like too hard to balance for sure. Okay, let's go to Instagram. It's an interesting one. Do you sit face-to-face or phone-in voice chats with most radio singers? Ratio face versus virtual. I'm guessing they mean like interviews. Most interviews were over the phone for sure, whether it was like a singer or someone in the community or like a celebrity, that sort of thing. Most on the morning show were over the phone. And my news career, which preceded my morning show career, it would be probably 75 in person, 25 on the phone, maybe 60-40. How many hours of work does it take off air to prepare / produce content for on air? It depends what you're doing. Like I said, I constantly would just have something running, a running list. So that really helps. When you have a co-host, it takes a little bit longer because you have to, you know, like prep together or make sure that you're on the same page. But with my co-host Farm, we really got to a place where we were just so in sync with one another that it didn't really take much time at all, honestly. You just kind of get in such a flow. But it just depends, like if I was prepping for an interview or if we were doing a bit or we were doing like a parody video or a video in general, like later on in our show, that just got to be more and more time. Do radio DJs get paid a fixed monthly salary or is it per shifts? It depends. Like morning show, I was a salary, but then when I moved to the country station, it was per shift that I got paid. Do you have a preferred slot? Do you have to work your way up from less busy / popular slots? The morning show for sure is the most coveted, and that's like the one where you get paid the most. I liked that one. I also liked evenings because I could be a little more like sassy and get away with more, especially after 10 p.m. But morning show was great. I liked live for sure. That's my preference. This is a great question. What song still haunts you from how much it was played? For me, it's Uptown Funk. I would say, yeah, anything Bruno Mars. I don't need to hear. Also, I Got a Feeling by the Black Eyed Peas. Never need to hear that again. Unfortunately, a lot of Justin Timberlake. I'm sure there's many. Oh, what's that song? All of Me by John Legend. Never need to hear it. Like, there's so many. What's your favorite genre of music? I like most. I really liked working at a pop station, like a top 40 station, and I also really liked working at a country station. Country concerts are just so fun and so happy. Same with pop concerts. And I found the listeners of both stations just to be super sweet. Ooh, most fun interview. Most fun. Well, I got to interview Tony Parsons, who I had grown up watching on the 6 o'clock news, so that was like a huge win. I got to interview Joy McCarthy, who wrote my favorite cookbook, Joyous Health. That was really special. Oh my gosh, there's so many celebrities we interviewed. Tony Parsons was for sure like the big. Oh, I interviewed Dr. Deepak Chopra, and I had to do it at like 3 in the morning because of his time difference. That was I was so nervous to interview him. That was a huge one. I was like, you're best friends with Oprah. Hardest interview? Well, I'm not gonna tell you who, but there was someone that I grew up loving, a sports figure that I interviewed, and he was such an a-hole. He was so dismissive and rude and bitchy, and it was like heartbreaking because I had watched him since I was little. That sucked. I was just like, wow, you're awful. Yeah. Hardest thing you ever had to do as a reporter? Oh my God, I had so many hard stories to cover. I had to go to the funeral of a football player who was like in his teens. That was really hard, and it was an open casket, and I was like 20, and I was volunteering at that station at the time. It was in Kelowna between my first and second year BCIT. I was like, this is terrible. I had to go to a Hells Angels funeral. That was terrifying. Any news story where like something tragic had happened, I sucked at that. I just wanted to hug them. I didn't want to ask the questions. I did a brief stint at a TV station. I remember that like camera guy physically pushing me towards the interview subject because I didn't want to talk to them. I think their house had just burned down. And I was like, I hated any of that. Like, that's not for me. This was one of the reasons why I left news. I was like, I can't be this person who has like, I know you have a job to do, but this is not my job to do. This is a great question. I got this asked a lot too. How much do you get paid? How much do radio announcers get paid? Well, I will tell you a few things. One, most radio announcers I know have multiple jobs. So I can tell you one thing. Two, when I left my job at Sun FM, my business had been running for 7 months and my business was already pulling in as much as I was making on the #1 morning show. It was equal. And within the first year and a bit of my business doing it full time, I tripled my income. So that's what you say. Like, you can make really good money, especially on a morning show in a medium to a major market, but most people in radio don't, and most have other jobs. You have to really love it. And I remember them saying that, like, first week of BCIT, if you're here to make money, you shouldn't be here. And I had classmates quit. They were like, you think you're gonna make 6 figures in your first year? Like, you need to go. And they did. Like, they literally quit the program. So anyway, that's my behind the scenes Q&A of my time in radio. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you listened to me on the air and you're here because of that, I super appreciate you sticking around. And thanks for leaving me all those questions. I cannot believe it's been 4 years. And another fun fact, I still wake up early. This morning, 4:30. My alarm used to go off at about 4:07. And I'm still a morning person, and I still fall asleep before 9. It's just like, I've just always been that way. Anyway, thanks for watching this episode of The Marathon, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.